The birch ghosts in the pine trees, we hunt other than deer. The frost is white upon my skin, the air is cold, the air is thin. Run through the valley and over the hill, it's the unforgettable thrill of hunting moomin, of hunting moomin. Are heavy as well as our packs. Our eyes scan the ground, will we soon find their tracks? The frost is white upon my skin, the air is cold, the air is thin. Run through the valley and over the hill, it's the unforgettable thrill of hunting moomin, hunting moomin. Back at the cottage, clean ourselves with steam. Resting in front of the fire, I soon fall into a dream. The frost is white upon my skin, the air is cold, the air is thin. Run through the valley and over the hill, it's the unforgettable thrill. Frost is white upon my skin, the air is cold, the air is thin. Run through the valley and over the hill, it's the unforgettable thrill of hunting moomin, of hunting moomin.
Hello, good evening and welcome. It's been a while since the last live stream. Well, actually, it's only been 2 weeks, but to me it has seemed like a much longer time because I spent last week in India. I got to fly out there thanks to one of my clients who I do contract work for. And the last time I went to India was about a decade and a half ago, and it was to Chennai, which is in the southeast of... Oh, actually, I better check that I've got the mic going. Yes, I have. Good. Yes, so Chennai, which is in the southeast of India, down close to the tip. And this time I got to go to Delhi, which was also quite an experience. For starters, I'd say that Delhi is not as crowded as Chennai, and it's not as humid. But the food was just as good in both places. And one of the wonderful things about India, as far as I'm concerned, is that as a vegetarian, I love being in a country where by default the food they serve in restaurants is aimed at vegetarians. It makes a welcome change from, for example, going to the United States, where I've generally found the menus are 80 or 90% meat options, and then there's like a few things tacked on for vegetarians. Although I have to say that has gotten better over the decades. Anyway, that's where I was last week. That's why I didn't have the live stream. And I have to say, unfortunately, I do have stomach cramps today, and I had them yesterday too. This is not unexpected when you go to a different country. Again, I'd actually say that, well, you kind of expect that if you go somewhere else, they have different flora in their ecosystem, and your stomach's not going to be used to it. And in fact, I had an Indian chap who was working for me, who would come over to Finland, and he had terrible stomach upsets for the first week. Even though you'd think that Finnish water is clean and that the hygiene levels are fine, and it's actually not about that. It's just down to the fact that it's a different place. So hopefully I can manage to struggle through this. It's not a terrible stomach upset, but it does, of course, put a bit of an edge to life, makes things a little bit harder to deal with. But as far as I'm concerned, it was a price worth paying, because I had a wonderful time there. People were really friendly, and Delhi has an amazing amount of history for you to go and see. And I fortunately had a day and a half a day on Sunday and the whole of Wednesday, where I actually got to travel around and look at the city. And I went to the Red Fort, and I also visited a very large Sikh temple. And the people there were amazingly friendly. It's quite an amazing place, actually. They even offer very cheap medical care for people. So when you're walking into the temple area, you're walking past all these rooms where you can get an MRI for 100 rupees, which is about €1. And I guess there are people out there for whom having those kind of services is really important. And then I went to a Hindu temple. When I'd never, I've never been inside a Sikh temple before, and I'd never been inside a Hindu temple, and really, it makes a change from going into a European church. They look very different. The Sikh temple had an awful lot of gold pasted over the ceilings, and the Hindu temple had all the statues of the Indian deities for you to look at. So, and an interesting fact I learned is that Hindu temples have a little shrine to Ganesha on the left, and that's the god with the elephant head. For those of you not familiar with Hindu mythology, or well, I guess it's not mythology to them. It's their religious beliefs, and there is usually, or in fact always, a statue on the right hand side and a little shrine to Hanuman, who is the monkey god. So I spent quite some time standing in front of the Ganesha statue, because Ganesha is the god of overcoming obstacles and of new beginnings and starts. So whenever you have a project in mind, if you're Hindu, it is likely that you'll be offering a prayer to him to help you get started. So obviously, in a sense, I guess he's the Hindu god of startups too. Anyway, so that's just it was meant to be a little introduction to explain why I wasn't here last week, and that's the reason. So I'll now start diving into some stuff about the Orthoverse. I was going to have an Ask Me Anything session, but it doesn't really look like we have very many viewers on at the moment, which is a bit of a shame, because it kind of spoils your Ask Me Anything session if there's nobody there to actually ask you anything. But that is what it is. Anyway, so maybe we'll keep this one a bit shorter as well, given that I'm not feeling 100% and there's nobody actually watching at this very moment. However, it's a good experience for a live streamer to actually experience live streaming something without a live audience. I've actually had this experience in a band. When I was in London in the mid-90s, I was in a band, and we turned up to play a gig at a pub, and I don't know what happened there, but the four of us turned up, and there were only 3 people in the bar, and after we'd concluded our first song, there was only 1. And you know, when the number of members of the band outnumber the audience by 4 to 1, then it's really not a great experience. But the way that I dealt with it was to treat it as a rehearsal. So it's good practice to actually play in a place with bad acoustics, that where you had to play all the stuff through in one go. You couldn't just stop and restart. And at the end of it, we got our free drinks, so I was fine with that. So, we got Priyank here, and he's asked me a question. What is your view on ChatGPT writing a smart contract? That's a good question. Now, I have had a go at getting ChatGPT to write stuff for me, but this was fairly early on in the launch, and it didn't do a terrible job, but you had to kind of dig into it. You couldn't just, it sort of gave outlines as to what you should use, and it was clearly using stuff that it had scraped off, for example, Open Zeppelin. So for creating a standard contract like an ERC20, I can imagine ChatGPT would be okay. And also it is better than, for example, Open Zeppelin's contract wizard, in that you can ask it questions about the particular things that it's included in the code. So I think ChatGPT is good for a basic level introductory explanation of what is going on with things. As for more complicated things, especially if you're writing innovative smart contracts, there I would guess it falls down. It might be able to surprise you by dragging up some information from some site that you didn't find yourself. So it's definitely a useful tool, and I think it will improve over time. I believe GitHub's Copilot is being improved in the same way at the moment. But I don't see... let's be honest here. I don't see AI replacing software developers, good, competent software developers, anytime soon, because it needs somebody to drive it, and it's not innovative. Now, it will get more innovative over time, or it will seem like it is, but there's still, to my mind, something missing. Now, there's a chap called Stephen Thaler who has actually done some AI work to try to get AIs to produce patents and patentable inventions, and at the moment he's engaged in some legal battle with various patent offices around the world. I think he's got a case in Australia, and he had one in Europe as well, where he's trying to get AIs recognized as authors of patents, of inventions. And the patent officers are saying, no, you can't have a non-human being as an inventor on a patent. And to be honest, it doesn't really matter from a practical purpose whether you're listed as an inventor or not, other than for personal pride and for recognition. So we put human inventors on patents in order to recognize their contribution to the invention. The company that pays for a patent prosecution doesn't really actually care about that. They will hand plaques out to inventors, but that's more a matter of sort of ego stroking. And so therefore, from a practical point of view, it doesn't matter whether an AI is listed as an inventor on a patent or not. And I don't see why the patent officers had such a big problem with it, other than some humanist gut reaction that it's not right. What matters in a patent is who it's assigned to, who owns the patent, because they're the ones who can go and sue for infringement and make money off it, which is the purpose of patents from a commercial perspective. And patents can be owned by non-human beings. Yeah, I'm not kidding. You can actually have a thing out there that is not a human being that owns a patent, and that thing is a company. Companies are, legally speaking, persons. They are legally people, but of course they don't have arms and legs, and they don't have emotions, and they don't have glands and hormones, and they don't feel compassion or love or concern, and they're allowed to own patents. So I don't see why there should be a problem with an AI owning a patent. But I've got kind of sidetracked from the code writing thing, and I think it's worth talking about that a bit more, because what was my point going to be on the coding? Well, yeah, I wanted to talk about no code. So there are companies out there that argue that we don't need developers, that there are tools out there that allow people who have no coding skills to produce software systems without writing a single line of Python or C or Java or whatever. And I had a look at those a couple of years ago, and I'm sure they've progressed more. And it looks like a promising idea, a promising project. But there's an issue again, which is that if you don't have the building blocks that you need to produce an application, then with no code you're stuck. And that means that no code systems, and as I said, AIs are great if you're doing run-of-the-mill stuff. So I think that these kind of tools are great just for producing a bog standard website, like a landing page or a blog or a brochure or things like that. That's fine. If you're trying to do anything more complicated than that, and then you hit the limits remarkably quickly. And I've generally worked on the sort of leading edge of things. So, for example, up until 2015, I was working on testing satellite navigation software. So that's software that can calculate your position based on signals from GPS and other GNSS satellites. And it turns out that there's an awful lot of maths involved in that, and there's an awful lot of complexity in the protocols. And there are a surprising number of problems to be solved. For example, radio signals can bounce off buildings and give you a false sense of where you actually are. If a radio signal bounces off a building and then comes to you, it's taken a slightly longer path to reach you, and this is called multipath, by the way, and it means that your position's in a bad place. You can be hundreds of meters out. So, and similarly, if there's some mess up with the satellite constellation and some of the satellites are broadcasting false information, which happened in, I think it was 2008, the whole Russian GLONASS system, which is their equivalent to the American GPS system, was giving completely false readings. And as a result, GPS navigation devices and mobile phones with satellite navigation were reporting that you were in a completely different country or even off the planet. Now, dealing with those kind of situations, unexpected stuff, an AI may luck out and manage it, but I think it's highly unlikely. There is this sort of need to actually understand what is going on to be able to think beyond the knowledge that we currently have. And ultimately, AIs are pattern recognizers. They can be very fast at recognizing patterns, and therefore patterns, I'm saying there, by the way, not patents. And they are therefore very useful, but they are very focused in what they can do based on their training set. So, however, Stephen Tyler would disagree and say that he has his two AIs that can kind of bounce off each other and actually do innovative stuff. But I have to be honest, I'm not an AI expert, so I don't know why I've been whittering on about AI for so long. But that's my sort of surface take on these things. I guess you'd really need to talk to the experts. Except then you have the problem that there are experts out there that believe that AI is already conscious. There are experts out there that believe they can be innovative, and there are experts who disagree and think the opposite. So Priyank, hopefully that answers your question, and I hope you enjoyed my little chat about India, because Priyank was the person who was showing me around Delhi very kindly as my tour guide and explaining all the stuff to me as we went along. So it was a great educational experience for me. As I said, I loved going to the temples. Really moved me. Well, in the absence of any more questions, I thought I would let's go into the Orthoverse. Let's not have my huge head there in the center, but actually switch to having the screen. Because of course this is the Orthoverse is Doomed, and as a result we should be going into the Orthoverse. So we'll do that now. Let's see. There we go. So what am I planning here? I've lost track of what I'm doing. It's been so long since I've been here. So I've got a floating pyramid. Now, one of the things that India made me think about is the fact that I'm building this kind of medieval looking town here, and it looks very nice. I think it's fun. It's certainly the along with Ken Newton's Penobdel. I can never remember the name of the country. Anyway, he's built a huge pyramid there. And this are the two main structures in the Orthoverse. And I'd really like to see more people having a go at actually building something on their lands, but obviously I'm not providing enough of an incentive. So this looks all very well and nice. Just ignore the floating pyramid. That was an experiment that didn't go well, and I haven't quite dismantled it yet, because it does look a bit out of keeping with the rest of the world. So that'll be gone. So what I thought I'd do is go and look at what people are actually doing in other voxel worlds. And it turns out that building recreations of real things is a big deal in the Minecraft world. So here's an example. So we've got a chap here who has built a model of St. John's College in Cambridge. And it looks all very nice. You've got this sort of medieval tower, and you've got a cathedral and stuff like that. And anybody who's walked around Cambridge will recognise that this looks like a Cambridge building. So for those of you who haven't, let's zoom in. Where are we? Where is the United Kingdom? Let's see how good there we go. There's Cambridge. My mouse wheel has broken, by the way. I'm very disappointed because the mouse is only a couple of months old. Anyway, we're looking for St. John's College. I'm not looking north, so that's making... There we go. So St. John's must be down here somewhere. Where's the river? There we go. There's St. John's. So if I can work out how the controls work. Can I tilt it? Yes, I almost can. There we go. So, and is it shift to rotate around? Yeah, there we go. So here's a Google Earth representation of St. John's College, and we'll just do a little hop back and forth. I wonder if I can get to roughly the same location. Oh, there we go. Almost there. There. Yeah, I think it's not exactly the same point, but you can see that it's a pretty good replica. And it turns out there are people who are literally spending hundreds of hours, thousands of hours in some cases, building replicas of real world things in voxel worlds, Minecraft being the main one. And I don't know what it is, but I find that kind of appealing. And it was crossing my mind, particularly when I was walking around the... God, can I remember the word? So it's a Gurdwara, I think. Gurdwara Bangla Sahib, the Sikh temple. I was thinking, this would be a fun thing to build, to actually have a model, and it'll be meaningful to people as well. So for me, it would be a kind of a way of building a memory of an experience I had. For other people, it may have a religious significance, or it may hark back to a memory from their childhood, or it could just be architecture that they love. Could be for all sorts of reasons. But the fact is that it turns out that with voxels, you can build very good facsimiles of real world things. And then I found out that there are actually some people who are running a project to build an accurate model of the entire world. So they're actually each voxel is a meter by meter, so they're building a 1 cubic meter accurate model of the world, starting with the bits and pieces that they're interested in. Now it would take a huge army to manage to actually do that. You're not going to be able to have a team of 10 people build the entire Earth, but it is something that you can crowdsource, and of course people are going to be particularly keen on building areas where they live. And then the other thing is that eventually it should be possible to use image interpretations, because when when Google Earth first hit the scene, and when you had Google Maps use the Google Earth 3D images, I remember there was a period, it must have been like 15 years ago, where Google didn't have many 3D models of the world. And there was a tool called SketchUp or something like that allowed you to actually build these models. And Marcus Lechner is wondering if this is still online or just a recording. Well, the fact that I'm reading the comment will hopefully show you that I am online. It's just that we don't have much of an audience at the moment. That's the reason. So I'm kind of talking to myself. But apparently this is something you have to learn as a DJ, for example, is dealing with dead air. Anyway, yeah, so Google Maps 3D models like we're looking at now, initially they were only created by people building them. And then, of course, Google developed the software to use aerial photography and image interpolation. And I guess they had 2 cameras on the plane as well to to construct these buildings automatically, and a whole bunch of software to make interpretations about what, is it a tree, is it a building, how it should be interpreted. So yeah, Marcus, if you say you really have some questions, so if you do, please go ahead. This is meant to be an Ask Me Anything session. Just there's not really anyone here to ask me questions, so feel free. Right, anyway, but I'll wait till Marcus asks his questions, and I'll just wrap this up then, which is that one of the things that could be done is to write a similar kind of piece of software that takes, for example, data from Google Maps and builds voxel world representations of what it sees. Now, I'm not going to do that. I've still got enough problems in the Orthoverse to solve before I could, well, if I would even be able to do that. But of course, it's got to be feasible. You've got to be able to take a screenshot like something like this, and the fact that you can move around, and convert it into something like that automatically. And then you can go in and edit stuff. And of course, there's building the inside, which is a bit hard because we don't have X-ray cameras. But yeah, Marcus, feel free to ask a question. Don't worry about your writing. But I really can't set up a two-way communication thing in a live stream. When I have guests on that, we've always organized it beforehand so that we actually have separate chat connection running. So Infotix is asking, what's the next update that I'm going to make to the Orthoverse? Well, it's the big thing is this saving the world. And no, I don't mean saving the world as in like Superman. What I mean is writing the world to disk. And I've got the basics working. I've been rushed off my feet with work over the last 3 weeks. I do have some spare time over the next 7 days, and so my big plan is to finally get that working, because it's almost there, and that will mean that we can have backups of individual people's lands. It means that it should dynamically load when you're walking through. If somebody buys a token, or rather reveals a token, and then the scraper detects that, it'll put it in there and make it live immediately. Nice reference to Heroes, by the way, there in Votrix with Save the Cheerleader, Save the World. That was a series that I really enjoyed until I got about halfway through, and then it just, like a lot of these series, it just sort of tailed off. I found particularly science fiction and sort of superhero ones, I have that problem with them. There was the Stephen King's The Dome that I gave up on halfway through. There was The Boys recently. There was another one where I got about halfway through and then gave up. So that's the main one, and that will also allow me to cope with if lands move around, because we had this lockdown when we hit 1,500 tokens, where the first lot were fixed on the map, and when we hit 5,000, which is a long way off, we're currently getting very few tokens revealed, but that's partially because I've not been promoting the Orthoverse as much. Then the tokens are kind of currently in grey in a holding pattern for where they are. So people who've leveled up their token more, or people who bought their tokens earlier, may find that their tokens move into better positions, and that means that I'm going to have to actually be able to move particular lands around. And one of the things Richard and I talked about was the idea that people could trade their locations. So we had this idea that, you know, it's desirable to be near to a henge, for example. So you could have the option of saying, well, I don't want to buy your token, but what I'd like to, because I'm fond of the name of mine and the crest that it's got, and I've built a whole load of stuff on it, but I would like to be closer to a henge. So maybe you could actually sell the location rather than the land itself. Maybe we'll resurrect that, maybe we won't. And then the next thing that's coming up after that, and again, this is something that is frustratingly close to being finished, is avatars. And that's not just about being able to design your own voxel character to walk around so you have a distinct look. And I would like that very much. At the moment, we all get allocated. Let me just go and see what I've got this time, if I can find my mouse pointer. Yeah, so if I hit O, you can see that today I have red hair and sort of pinkish skin. And you'll notice the characters, they're all wearing rags. They're meant to represent serfs. So the idea is that they are going to, you'll be able to, if you own a land, design your own character, and you'll have a whole bunch of stuff to choose from. And that kind of stuff all works. You'll be able to save your design, and then you know, you can sort of stamp your own personality. People seem to like avatars for some reason. I mean, Ready Player Me is building a whole business around it. I find it personally rather surprising how hung up people get on it, but I guess it's an expression of yourself. So there's that, and that all works. The issue I have is connecting it up to a database that then hooks into the world properly. And again, it's really close. It's a case of it needs lots of testing. And I've got to get the saving of the lands done first. Saving the lands. That sounds a bit like Silence of the Lambs, doesn't it? So I've got to get that sorted, because it's important. Because when people have put a lot of work into building something, they're going to be mortified if they go and check it out and it's gone and it can't be retrieved. So that's why that's important. Having put an immense amount of time into building all this stuff that you can see around, I would hate to lose it. Even though now that I've seen what people are able to build in worlds like Roblox and Minecraft, I'm not quite as proud of it as I was. But still, you know, it's important to me. So that's the thing after that. And but as I say, it's not just about building the avatars. It's also about having a user account. So it'll actually act as it'll show you your token portfolio, and because at the moment you have to go to Looks Rare if you want to transfer a token to a different address. If you want to level up a token and you've transferred it to a different address, that's currently not possible. So there's this interface, and the interface works. It kind of shows you your all your tokens that your currently connected address has, shows you level, things like that. It just needs some help from Richard to actually hook it up to make Ethereum transactions, so that when you transfer, or when you flip it, or when you level it up, that there's actually a button that allows you to do that, and it gets your wallet to actually transmit the transaction. So that's important. And yeah, so that's kind of going to be a rather sort of not in the world kind of thing, but an outside the world connecting into it component that's going to be important. And it does run really nicely. I posted a bunch of previews on LinkedIn before Christmas even, so it felt like it was 90% there before Christmas. But anybody who works in software will know that when you're when you're working in software, the first 80% takes 80% of the time, and then the remaining 20% takes the other 80% of the time. I think that's the aphorism. So, and then beyond that, because I've mentioned these two things before, I think, what ideas do we have? I've got notes and notes. I'm not going to run out of ideas for this. One of the things is going into the voxel world and actually adding extra functionality. So Prismarine.js has the capacity for coping with entities. So you could have spiders or ducks or well, not creepers, because they're copyright Minecraft, so we'd never have those in this world. But you could have other non-player characters, and then somebody who owns a LAN might actually have a limited number of those that they can place. For example, I would very much. Where's my mouse pointer going again? It's so terrible at keeping track of my mouse pointer. Yeah, so I shall show you a little secret and then tell you that what I really like to have is, there we go. And if you go around here and you jump in the well, it's a well, it's a temple thing, and you go down here, there's the entrance, and people watching this video, and people explore from within and know that. There's a cave, and then stalactites and things like that. So I'd love to have some spiders in here or bats or something like that.
Unpredictable teaching.
So that's one idea.
Keep me alive.
Richard and I were talking about actually seeing if we can build a game economy. I'm not sure it's really important at this stage, but we talked about having some kind of in-game currency growth, and then the idea that people who design a nice building can actually work on a team of the building, and they can use it as a limited edition 1 to 10, or as many as they like, and they can sell them. And then if you buy one of these NFTs, it gives you a little button that you can press to say,
keep me alive
and
by those
build the building.
Unknown reactions.
So that could allow for builders to actually monetize.
Keep me alive
buildings that they
by
design.
the
I think that would be fun. And
magic you
do.
do.
Build a economy.
Keep me alive. Oh, with your
I have
excitement and newness. Keep me alive.
God, it's like every single stream, there's something with the streaming software where it goes wrong. So we had an early end suggested there. So I guess that means that maybe when I was walking to the cave, people didn't get to see it, and it remains secret to me anyway. So it should be fixed now. Ken, thank you for messaging me in the actual world. Okay, so that was fixed. Okay, anyway, well, mishaps happen, and in the Orthoverse they happen much more frequently, because I am not a professional streamer, and to be honest, I don't think I would ever want to be. I mean, I'm quite happy to have one of these sessions every Saturday, but the idea of doing this as a career, it's like awfully tiring. And when you think about some of these YouTubers, then how they have the energy to produce a live stream every couple of days, how their voices cope with it, I have no idea. And some of them would be doing it for like a decade. I guess it's horses for courses. Different people like different things. Right, I'm going to zap out of the cave without revealing how you can get into it. Well, let's look at it that way. It was fate, right? Now you all know that there's a cave in Fangwanina, and you can have a go at finding it. Except I think I was narrating where it was. So, I'd forgotten about my giant CryptoPunk-like portrait of a wizard at the entrance to my world. I can't bring myself to delete it. It's completely incongruous with the rest of the world, but I just think it looks too nice. Maybe what I need to do is go to well, I could go to a different world and place somewhere else, but it's actually kind of good that it's visible to people as soon as they come in. I mean, I imagine if this place was to ever take off and there were lots of visitors, then all the surrounding lands would eventually get filled up with lots of this kind of stuff, just to attract people's attention. You know, tall towers, striking images, stuff like that, just to try and entice people in. So maybe it's a precursor of what's yet to come. Right. So I haven't got any more questions, and I am starting to feel slightly unwell. So I'm not going to try and push through this. I'm not going to be a hero and sit it out to the end of the 1 hour. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to wander around and do a little bit of building and give people one last chance to ask me anything, and then I will wrap it up by about 9:45 midnight my time, 9:45 GMT. I think that makes sense. So you have about 3 minutes or so to ask me a question, otherwise I shall be heading out. Right, so I was going to build a colonnade here, make a path. This is a weird, quirky thing I've discovered, by the way. So these are cobblestones, and okay, Marcus says he has a proposal. Well, maybe we should talk about that off the live stream. It sounds like something that is not for general discussion. Yeah, anyway, so these are, you saw me place these. I've got 25 cobblestone blocks, and they have this sort of grid shape. And then down here there are these blocks that look sort of like stone, but watch the number 25 when I mine one and pick it up. 26. So when the world is first created, they look like this, but then when you place them, they get this grid shape, and I have no idea why that happens. And what it means is, if you want to have some of these blocks, you just have to mine down to that level, and that's where they would be. As soon as you dig them up, they disappear. Yeah, Marcus, so feel free to contact me on Monday. I think you have my number, and yeah, we can discuss it maybe on Monday afternoon or Tuesday. Okay, right. Oh god, it's getting dark. Oh, I'm missing the sunset. Where is the sun? It's gone behind the horizon. Right. Anyway, yeah, so I was going to build a colonnade along here, because they have them in Cambridge, like in Trinity College. In fact, rather than seeing me place blocks in the dark, have I still got Google Earth? Yeah. Okay. So there's Trinity College here. It's the largest college, richest college in Cambridge, and one of its famous alumni is Sir Isaac Newton. In fact, if you go over here, there's a Newton, the inspiration for theory of gravitation. But anyway, what is known to be true is that there's this. This is, I think, Neville's Court. So there's you can walk along here, and it's covered, and there are these pillars. And what Newton did was he worked out the speed of sound by jumping up and down inside there. So he stood somewhere over here, and when you jump, you get an echo of the sound traveling down the corridor and back again. And so what he did was, I think he had like a Huygens watch or something like that, is he found the place where he had to stand so that if he jumped up and down, as he landed and made a sound, the reflected sound reached him at the same time. And so you think you're jumping up and down, so jump, jump, jump. You hear the bang when you land, dunk, dunk. So you land, and then the sound goes down here and then comes back. And so you're getting the echo a second later, and you can get that timed by just jumping up and down at the right rate, at the right distance. And he used that to calculate the speed of sound. So, okay, Marcus, I can't call you tonight because I'm going to be going to bed very shortly, but we should set up some time tomorrow. Okay, I have tomorrow afternoon free, so I think that's the best time for us to talk. Okay. George Maynard Keynes went to this one, so we're currently in a bit of economic mess, and one of the architects of modern economics was at this university. It is a beautiful place. I have to say I do miss it sometimes, but it was also a very intense place to study at. So it's kind of one of those memories where lots of fond memories because it's a beautiful, beautiful city. Also, some memories I'm not so fond of feeling awfully stressed and out of my depth and suffering terribly from imposter syndrome. But it is what it is. Anyway, it's coming up for 1:45, and I missed your question, Infotrix. Is there a height limit to the board? Yes, there is. The total, I think last time I was talking about columns. So a chunks. So a chunk is a 16 by 16 by 256 pixel area, and that gives you a hint. It's 256 voxels, and the ground level is 41 voxels up from the bedrock. So you can actually build awfully high, ridiculously high. Now I would have liked the ground level to be a lot higher so that there was more depth and you could mine down and have caves and tunnel type stuff going well down into the depths of the earth. But it turns out that really slows down Prismarine JS flying the web client, because it has to render all the blocks that are not air. And I tried initially having the earth being 100 blocks deep, and just crawled to a halt. So you have to have a lot of air, but that does allow for very tall towers. So it should be. I mean, in fact, yeah, I've got a few minutes. Let's just go up my ridiculously tall tower. I just keep building up. So there we go. Oh, nice moon rising. Right, I'm going to walk up these stairs. My kids would be able to do this 3 times as fast as me, but I am not as dexterous as they are. I am, however, wiser. So, right, here we go. We get to the very top. Oh gosh, I'd forgotten how big it is. Right, so we're not quite at the top. There's this too. So I'm going to go here. Actually, it could be interesting. There we are, on to the very top. So you can see that there's a problem in that I can actually see through the hills here. It's another thing I'd like to fix. But yeah, there's always more to fix. Right, so let's just keep going. Up and up and up. So that is 20. Oh, there's the sun. Just in time. Right, and let's do another 20. Just keep going. Ooh, it's starting to get vertigo actually. I'm glad I'm not wearing a VR headset. That's the thing that gets me about the VR stuff for the metaverse. It's like the obsession about it. There's so many people that's meaningless for. That some people don't have stereoscopic vision. Some people have vertigo. Some people just don't want to wear a big heavy thing on their heads, or even a light thing for that matter. I mean, unless they could get it to the level of a pair of ordinary glasses. Yeah, it's not going to work for a lot of people. That's funny. It's not rendered one corner of the world. Right. So what we're going to do here, I've got to hang on. I've got to keep going. I know I said I was going to wrap it up at 1:45. But I'm just going to use every single block I have and see if it crashes when I get to the top. That's the test engineer in me here. See, even though I've got an upset tummy, I'm still going to struggle through to see if I can break this. By the way, any of you considering a career in test engineering, that's the kind of grit you need in order to make it. Only kidding. What you want to be as a test engineer is you want to you want to be somebody who would prefer to take the afternoon off so that you try to automate what it is that you're doing, and you also have to be the kind of person who gets obsessed with things. All right. Whoa, I don't want to fall off at this stage. Okay, so I've actually reached a height now that the ground, the Fanguania ground, is beyond the rendering distance. So you can see the funny effect of the roofs appearing and disappearing. So that's very good for the web client because it doesn't have to render as many voxels. But of course now what we're seeing is the bottom of the skybox. Those of you who were in a previous live stream where I was talking about celestial mechanics may remember that the still going. So yeah, I guess 216 blocks is actually quite a lot of blocks, and I've probably only done 100 and yeah, I've probably only done 120 or so, so I'm probably not going to make it in time. This does, however, Infotrix, give you an idea, which is you can build a flying castle high up in the sky that is out of reach of your why is it? That's weird. Okay, so I'm placing blocks now and they're not appearing. Yeah, so what I was going to say is this means that you can create a flying castle, or indeed a whole nother land way up in the sky, and it won't be visible from the ground if it's high enough, so it won't block out the clouds or appear as a speck up above, which might be useful. Yeah, it's placing blocks, but it's not placing them, if you know what I mean. They're just disappearing. Now let's turn off the jumping. There. I'm gonna try and do some acrobatics and see if I can place a block to the side here without falling off. There we go. I think I can do it. Can I? Can I do it? Come on. No, it's there. We go. Hop, hop. Right. So it's nerve-wracking at the best of times. Right. So yeah. So it's just not. It's eating up the blocks, but it's not placing them anywhere. So I think I'm actually at the top. Right. Okay. I think it's time to do the do a high dive. Ready? 1, 2, 3, go! Whoa! Boom. Well, I kind of hoped that would take a little bit longer than it did, to be honest. Yeah, so now I have a huge aerial sticking out of the top, and you can't see all the way to the top because you can't see that little side thing that I put on it. Yeah, that really does look like one of those radio towers, doesn't it? Okay, well, I am going to wrap it up. I had to persevere with that. It's just personal pride or something that meant that I had to do it. But that's it for today. Really appreciate those of you who turned up. The rest of you who watch this non-live, why aren't you here? It's a social occasion. Plus, you actually get the chance to talk to me. I mean, it's through a chat, but it is basically live, and you know, surely that's a unique selling point. Anyway, I'll stop whittering on. Thank you everybody who turned up. Really appreciated you being here. There'll be another live stream next Saturday, and I think I'll think up something, maybe something a bit more interesting to attract people in. Then Keir will answer any questions you want. Obviously that's not a good enough sales pitch. So thank you all, and good night.